Hi, this is going to be a very quick and brief breakdown of the meta and how it's evolved and where everything has placed, just so you don't have to search through a whole bunch of videos and posts, just everything can be contained in one place. This is not an evaluation of how strong things are, how viable, or how good they are. This is purely how they interact with the meta. So, something like a sale that's really good and viable, but nowhere close to the meta, is not really going to be, evaluated. It's just going to be, hasn't changed. Okay, so let's start with the classes. Veteran gained huge amounts of importance. He was always a part of the meta, but now he is like the definitive cornerstone. Psyker has also gained a bunch of importance. Like, they are also definitive, the meta now. They hard counter the hardest things. Arbites, you can take it or leave it. They aren't really like definitive useful all the time. They're just really good. Remember, this is what I mean by we're not evaluating the power level of things. Just, do they contribute to some bullshit composition that makes it so your dog can beat the game? The Ogryn lost a lot of meta use. I can't say he's no longer a part of the meta because Taunt is still very good, but after those Ogryn nerfs and just the Arbites kind of really stepping on the class's toes, he's kind of, Zealot got just fucking smited out of the meta entirely. The book spam is no longer as powerful as it was. It's also, even if it was as powerful as it was, it's no longer as needed as it was. Zealot, his shtick of being really high melee damage got completely replaced by Veteran. And if you really want to, you can keep all of Veteran's OP bullshit and just use like Power Sword and Mark Target on a Veteran, and they can kill bosses in like 10 seconds. So Zealot nuking bosses isn't even really useful. It's more of a gimmick than anything. Again, I'm not saying Zealot is bad. I really, really need to emphasize this. I'm not saying the class is bad. Just the main bit of bullshit that was letting him contribute to easy pub stomp victories is no longer a thing, and that's kind of what you need to be a part of the meta. That's why so many people find it boring. Okay, I don't think I need to keep reiterating that. I just really wanted to make sure everyone's clear on that. All right, so let's talk Veteran first. The Shredders lost a shit ton of meta usage. Now that smoke grenades have, so we'll just place these all real quick. So armor and its regeneration are like the hardest things you need to be countering in Havoc. The way you counter that is with crack grenades. Crack grenades got huge buffs. Everything that they counter is now like the main thing you need to counter, and you need to counter it a lot and very quickly. Crack grenades got buffed in every way. They magnetize harder. They explode faster. You can carry more of them. The grenade talents are now easier to access. Everything about cracks. Honestly, if you're playing Veteran in Havoc, you're probably playing with crack grenades. Smokes also gained a lot of meta usage because most Psykers realize that we are in a meta where you absolutely need to be shredding these armor packs as quick as possible, or else they're going to eat up all your space, force you in a corner, and just bully you to death. Which means they cannot really afford to be running Bubble. You really don't want to be running Bubble if you can help it on your Psyker now. Honestly, you'll probably find more success once you reach the skill level where you can consistently clear Havoc 40, just dropping Bubble for venting Shriek and then letting the Veteran handle that with smoke grenades. I'm not even joking right now. That is kind of just how things have shaped out. It's just nice to have a quicker, there's no cooldown on a smoke grenade. You could use it to block off. You can use it to force gunners to approach. Smoke grenades, now that it isn't literally just 24/7 gunners, and now that there's plasma gunners that can hard counter the Bubble has lost a lot of use. So I guess we'll just put this. Bubble has lost a lot of meta use. Honestly, at the highest level of play, Bubble is down here. At like, if you're in like, I'd say even just the top 5% of the skill ceiling, you have no reason to be using Bubble anymore. It's just basically dead. But for the other 95% of people that are dipping their toes into Havoc, you can still argue it's pretty meta. I really want to put this down here, but I do know for the vast majority of people, their security bubble still helps them win a lot of games. So we'll just keep it here for now. Okay, so Survivalist has not changed. It breaks the ammo economy. You always want one of them. It's exactly the same as it was. Movement speed has kind of lost any possible meta application. Nah, we'll say it hasn't changed because nobody's taking this shit. Nobody was taking this shit before. Nobody's taking it now, even though they're both technically worse than they were. They weren't a part of the meta to begin with, so it hasn't changed. Or I guess I can just put it down here. No, that's literally what this is for, the irrelevant tier. This is also going to be the tier list for stuff that is irrelevant and was never a part of the meta to begin with. Honestly, I should have pre-filled this tier out before we even got here. Shout has not changed. You still always want one Shout vet in every single comp, no matter what. And that's really why I say veteran is like the new cornerstone, because you can make the argument for just about every single class except for veteran. Crack grenades to instantly delete the purple crusher and like the 2 crushers standing next to him. Honestly, the regenerating crack grenades that can deal with armored hordes and or bosses entirely in their own right, on top of gold piss toughness, on top of survivalist breaking the animo economy, you absolutely cannot argue every team needs at least one veteran to be a meta composition. You cannot make a meta team without a veteran. Not to say you can't make good teams or teams that can easily stomp through Havoc 40 without any effort. I'm talking in the most boring, overly optimized sense. Veteran is unarguably like the guy. Okay, so Focus Target has actually gained some meta use cases. Now that, like, Hellbore plus Mark Target plus the Rending, you can just kind of like, kill down Crushers. It's unironically a pretty strong playstyle. I wouldn't say it's pushed Marksman's Focus as a meta option that's even remotely competitive to Shout, but if you already have a Shout vet and you trust your teammates that you don't need, you know, more shouting, you don't need extra gold toughness, you can legitimately make the argument that it's more impactful to run a Hellbore and Mark Target, or I'm sorry, and Marks, whatever the fuck this ultimate is. I completely forget the name of it, but to just constantly chain one-shot crushers before the armor pack even gets to you. You can legitimately make the argument that's a super, like, borderline meta playstyle. And honestly, I would agree. Hellbore Kriegsman enjoyers fucking rise the hell up. It's literally your time. Smokes, Shovel, Mark Target, and this can legitimately be argued to be as good as, like, Bleed, Shout, Weapon Specialist in some modifier combos. This is irrelevant. The veteran stealth shouldn't even be in the game. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't support the weapon specialist playstyle. It doesn't support the movement speeds playstyle. Like, this and this makes sense, you know. There's, like, you get movement speed. The movement speed helps you get into melee. The stealth doesn't even make sense. It doesn't support the weapon swap veteran playstyle because, you know, you have smokes to help you get in already. You have movement speed to help you get in already. Like, being invisible does not contribute anything to this playstyle. It doesn't give you a cash out reward for this playstyle. That's what weapon specialist is for. It doesn't help you get closer. That's what smokes are for. It's just, it doesn't have a reason to exist. It's never have been a part of the meta. It's never going to be a part of the meta. It's always just going to be this weird thing you can do if you want to, but it's never gonna, like, be as strong as Shout. Weapon Specialist has not changed. You still basically just use this so that you can mow through Crushers quicker. Mark Target, Focus Target, whatever the hell it's actually, the actual name of the keystone is. Focus on my fucking AO right now is not very good anymore. It still has some use in that if your team is already shredding through armor packs and the only thing that's really scary is a possible lack of boss damage, this can be okay. But even then, when there is like 3 bosses, marking one of them's not that impactful. But the real issue with the mark is when there are packs of crushers with purple, and that's like the main thing you're scared of dying to now, just every like 4 seconds making one crusher die in one less hit is like the least individually impactful thing you can be doing. And Marksman's Focus hasn't really changed. You can use it with that Hellbore setup I was talking about to ensure all crushers die in one hit, but it's still pretty damn irrelevant. So we're going to drop this in. We're going to put this in irrelevant tier. Nobody's really using this that much. Our Bites Grenade has not changed. If you are good or you're playing with Smite, you're still using this. The dog has just completely been kicked out of the meta. The dog was meta before because of the bleed explosion stupidity like glitches that you could do. That was undeniably the strongest thing you could be doing. But then they took that away. Now it's more in line with the other options, and it's just not as good. Shock Mine is the new meta. Now that the dog explosion bullshit has been fixed, the Shock Mine has come out as the clear contender of best Arbites grenade. And honestly, Arbites' role is generally just I'm going to run ahead of the group and I'm going to stop new specials and new elites from coming in. So let's say you're dealing with an armor pack, right? Let me give you a prime example of where the Arbites shines. Let's say your team is fighting an armor pack. And then let's say a captain spawns. And because captains always bring like 10 crushers or maulers or whatever in with them, you know that if your team fighting in a choke point has a captain in that choke point, which is going to force them to disperse, and the armor pack is getting all of its numbers replenished, you're most likely going to wipe most of the time. So, how does an Arbites help this situation? Well, he runs ahead, grabs the captain's aggro, uses his insane tankiness to just not feel punishment for any mistakes against the captain, and you drop a shock mine in that further up ahead choke point so that his armor pack reinforcements don't replenish the numbers and overwhelm your team. That actually legitimately will win you games. Arbites is an interesting class because he doesn't really provide a whole lot to the team like that's immediately obvious, but he does provide control. You need to actually be a very good player to make every like use case out of the Arbites. And that's why he's just kind of right here. If you are not good and you play the Arbites, you are not going to have very much impact on when the game, like how the game's gonna go out. When I was brand new to playing this class, that's exactly how I felt. I was like, I really don't feel like I get to contribute that much to the team winning because I just had no fucking idea what I was doing. After talking to more people and trying out more aggressive, like even further frontline play styles, I definitely feel the impact of some of my actions more and more. And that feeling's only growing the more I'm investigating, just like, you know, you're basically, so usually when you would split into 2 and 2 groups, Arbites is strong enough and controllable enough that you can just go off into a 2 and 2 split by yourself. And you can make it a 3 and 1 split and do all of the things that need to be done. This is actually really good for helping people that aren't comfortable playing Havoc 40 in teams of 2, like in Dark Communion or the one map where you have to like sit back on the objective and you have to like stop all the gunners from coming in. Arbites is a perfect solo operative. And yeah, the auras for him have literally not changed. The non-stagger ones are irrelevant. The stagger one is still just as good. Honestly, I don't remember what the non-stagger ones even look like because they're that fucking irrelevant. Literally no one uses them. I don't actually know. I think this is the stagger one, so I'm just going to put this here. Lone Wolf is unequivocally the new meta after all the nerfs to the dog. Because remember what I said about stalling the game so that your teammates can really successfully like do whatever they need to do? Yeah, unlimited shock mines is kind of what enables that playstyle. Even if you have smite or you feel like you don't need to play like that because your team is good enough, the Arbites grenade is still really fucking strong. So having an unlimited amount of them can still be a pretty game-changing because you never have to actually pick up grenades, which means the Ogryn can take grenades, the Veteran can take grenades, so on and so forth. I would say that this node has lost meta usage more so it's changed. It hasn't really changed. Yeah, I mean it's like right on the verge of hasn't changed because well, okay, here's no. You know what? Right. Listen. Castigator stance is OP. However, what does Castigator stance actually do to win the game? Fucking nothing. And if you're already playing Arbites well, do you actually need Castigator stance? No, not really. And as I've been documenting my journey streaming the class, the better I've been getting in him, and this is something someone who's very good with the class pulled me aside like last night on Discord and pointed out to me, is he was like, the reason why you're struggling so much is because you're trying to play Arbides like veteran, and you're just trying to play it like a tanky veteran, which is absolutely wrong. As soon as I swapped off a Castigator stance, I felt so much stronger. Castigator stance is a crutch that holds people back. It doesn't win games. It doesn't do anything. It's just a I am safe and don't have to think for the next 10 seconds kind of button. The problem is, unless it's giving that effect to the entire team like Smite does, how is it actually contributing to winning the game? Remember, it is a team game, and the strongest things are the things that make everyone stronger. Because if everyone is doing something that contributes to everyone else's game plan, that will always be stronger than one really... Remember, 4 bad players abusing the meta, where every meta item is something that strengthens each other, will usually have easier runs and more consistent runs than one really good player playing very selfishly and 3 really shit players that he's kind of just carrying. That's just kind of how Darktide works, and Castigator's stance just doesn't really help you with that. And I can definitely say it's safe to say this has lost meta use now that I'm thinking about it, because the dog in general has lost meta use after the nerfs. Remember, we're not evaluating the power level of things here. We're just evaluating their, like, how they stand after the patch, after the changes in the meta. And dog got brought way the hell down, so the keystone that buffs the dog has to get brought down, even if you still think it's the best. Forceful has definitely gained meta use by that same logic, because since dog setups are basically no longer meta in any capacity, and Forceful is like the best for non-dog setups, I think you can follow the logic here. By doing nothing at all, just not being the recipient of nerfs, Forceful has gotten better. You know, if the previous best thing has gotten nerfed and is now worse than the new best thing, which is the same, the new best thing is now closer to being the undisputed meta. Okay, I think everyone is smart enough to follow along with that. This shit is irrelevant and nobody's doing it. So, Break the Line has gained a lot of meta usage, mostly just because as people playing Arbides get better, they realize that it's more important to just have that knockdown every, like, 10 seconds, rather than every 25 seconds have a 10 seconds of God mode. It's just better for the team to click a button, like, you know, every, like, 7 to 10 seconds, depending on if you're using this or not or whatever. You know, anywhere from like 7 if you're like CD, if you're fucking big chillin' CD maxing, to like 15 if you're for some reason taking no cooldown in any capacity, seconds of knockdowns just ends up being more impactful. Like, oh, there's a pack of crushers coming in. Oh, I knocked down the first one, which domino effect staggered the rest of them, which gave the Psyker 10 more seconds to apply dots and let the dots burn, which killed 7 of the 12 crushers coming at us that otherwise we would have had to deal with. That's really, that's really the thing. What do you think sounds like it's going to win the game more? You never dying to any overheads or any attacks, or you knocking them over, giving your teammates like 5 to 10 more seconds to deal damage before they potentially get hit with overheads and stuff? It should be pretty obvious as to what actually wins games. This is pretty irrelevant, and nobody's really trying to say that this is like the meta ultimate. It hasn't changed, it's just irrelevant. I should make a tier below this. Yeah, let's do that. Hold on. Add row below. This is going to be our does not matter tier. Does not matter. And we're just going to drop this shit all down into it. This is purely for things that have been nerfed out of the meta. This is for things that just legitimately don't matter. Okay. Every single grenade has gotten a lot of meta use. Stuns, for the same reason Arbides and Ogryn are... Oh, Jesus, excuse me, sorry. For the same reason that Arbides and Ogryn are powerful, stun storms are powerful. You can be doing Zealot things, and then you can just toss a stun storm at an incoming armor pack and buy your team time to clean up what you're dealing with currently. Fire grenades have gained meta usage purely because the knife is no longer, fucking crab rave, the knife is dead. Honestly, I kind of feel like the knife is just straight up not a part of the meta anymore, but that would be a little bit too harsh. Because really, the only time you're taking the knife now is if you absolutely need to help your veteran. Like, if you're playing in a team and you have, like, the only person that's dealing with any gunners or bombers or anything like that is one veteran with a plasma gun, you might pull the knife out. But really, apart from that, the other two grenades are just kind of more directly impactful in like preventing losses than the knife contributes to winning the game. Fury of the Faithful hasn't really changed. Book has been nuked from orbit, and stealth also hasn't really changed. So, Book got nuked from fucking orbit. It just, you cast like, I think it's something like 60% less than you used to. Because not only can you no longer stack cooldown talents, the cooldown talents that exist are also less impactful than they used to be. Which means you book once, and then you might have to wait like a full 40 seconds on booking. Whereas before you only had to wait like 20-ish seconds. So honestly, you're booking about half as much as you used to. Which means, why not just play veteran with shout? A veteran with shout and smoke grenades is unironically stronger at doing the exact same thing Book tried to do, just without Book. Think about it. Smoke grenades can be tossed over at the gunners to borderline suppress them. Shout can be popped for gold toughness, and shout can be popped to stun things and apply gold toughness. There you go. You've now dealt with the gunners, and you've given gold toughness, and you gave everyone a couple seconds of crowd control. I mean, that's literally why you were using the Book. It's just, you get to do that every like 20 seconds instead of every 50 seconds or whatever the Book is. So yeah, the Book kind of got nuked from orbit. The thingy has gained some meta usage now that you can take the 10% crit node for your team and not be locked out of the damage resistance and stuff. This node is just better in every way. If the previous meta thing was made stronger, it has gained meta usage, basically. Martyrdom is now, has been buffed to the point where, honestly, I feel like it kind of belongs up here. I feel like Martyrdom is just strictly better than the crit node now. I will still advocate for people to not use it, just because I don't want to be responsible for a wave of crappy Martyrdom zealots that die within the first 2 minutes because they're not used to playing with, like, 50 HP or whatever. However, once you are at that level, like, and honestly, the floor for how bad you can be and still run Martyrdom and make it the best keystone has been raised exponentially. Because you got one of your curios back, you can use toughness. You don't need to be, like, as low on HP. Everything about Marty has gotten better. You get more reward for running it. It's safer to run than it used to be. It's kind of just better in every way. This is pretty irrelevant. No one was really arguing that Exorable Judgment was the meta option. It's still pretty good. It's still really strong. It's still good for making weapons that aren't the dueling sword be able to kite forever. That's kind of the thing with Exorable Judgment. This keystone, if you're using non-meta weapons, it basically makes it. This keystone takes any weapon and basically makes it a meta weapon. It gives you the speed to kite forever, which 90% of weapons are lacking. It gives you attack speed and damage, so it works with every weapon, and it turns every weapon into the dueling sword, basically, which is definitely something worth noting in its own right. But let's be honest, if the main, like, thing of a node is it allows you to get away with the stupid overpowered bullshit that this other weapon lets you do, I think we can all agree making that stupid overpowered weapon that doesn't need to take this to get those effects is probably more meta, yeah? Benediction hasn't changed. This hasn't changed. And this literally got nuked from orbit, but nobody was taking this in the first place. The 15% stamina cost thing is pretty bad. So this is kind of just down here. This hasn't really changed / gained a little bit of meta use because they buffed Kinetic Flare. But, nah. I hate to fucking say this, but Smite is just the new meta. For 99% of people, you will have easier runs if you drop a bubble, have a Psyker sit there, and just with fucking smite. As annoying as that is to say, let's face the facts, that is just the simplest way to win Havoc. Especially when they don't have the red modifier in rotation, then smite is just boring as fuck, but makes the game easy as fuck. And Assail does not matter. Nobody was making the argument that Assail was a part of the meta. Though actually, I will say, no, I do feel like this has gained meta use, actually. Because you can bring this into Havoc if you're crazy and you want it as a way to snipe things. So really, here's the thing, right? I'm actually not going to put any Psyker. I can't, in good consciousness, put any Psyker Blitz as losing meta usage for one very simple reason. You could now pick any Blitz and go into anything you want. Whereas before, picking a Blitz locked you into things. If you picked a Sail, you could not get all the cooldown reduction. If you could not get all the cooldown reduction, you could not stack Venting Shriek or place down bubbles nearly as effectively, which meant you were getting hard locked into one playstyle. The fact that you are no longer getting hard locked into one playstyle means if you find a way to justify bringing a Sail, you can actually find a way now. Whereas this has not really changed. Seer's Presence, I don't really want to say it's the new meta because it has, this is just gained meta use. Reason why Seer's Presence isn't in the new meta, do I put this up here? Right, here's the dilemma for me on this particular aura. This aura has not changed. However, everything around it has changed. In fact, the fact that everyone is getting less cooldown reduction for just everything now means an aura that gives you 10% this is basically the survivalist of Psyker. Every single build has to run this if you even want to remotely make it a meta build. Because the other two auras are just so much less impactful. They're way less impactful. However, this hasn't really changed. It's always been the meta, so it's not really quote-unquote the new meta. I don't know, maybe this is the new meta / has gained, has made out like a bandit. Here, we'll add this. / got way stronger. There we go. This was irrelevant. Nobody was really arguing that 5% crit chance was meta over 10% CD. And this node actually gained a lot of meta usage because 7.5% elite damage is pretty terrible. However, 7.5% elite damage for all of your dots, for all of your teammates, is kind of justifiable if you're already getting Seer's Presence. If you're doubling up on Psykers, you're kind of going Seer's Presence and then this node. But you're rarely, if ever, doubling up on Psykers. Venting Shriek hasn't really changed. No, Venting Shriek is definitely gained meta usage in new Havoc because Bubble is less important. That's really all it comes down to. Bubble is less important. And in making it less important, it has raised the skill, it has increased the skill brackets that can justifiably run Venting Shriek and find success with it. Scryer's Gaze, stop buffing Scryer's Gaze. Seriously, I am laying down the law. Fat Shark, stop buffing Scryer's Gaze. So, yeah, this node is kind of ridiculous now. I definitely think at the top end of Psyker gameplay, Shriek is still the best ultimate. But again, for most people, for most people, they kind of need Smite to not get overwhelmed by armor packs. So here's the thing, right? There is a divide in the player base right now. There are players that rightfully believe the best way to play the game is stack so much of these damaging tools that you can just nuke enemies before they're a legitimate problem. Then there's the other side of the player base. Now, mind you, this is lopsided, 95% versus 5%. That's why I like to say if you're like top 5% skill, because you really do have to be quite good at the game to make something like Venting Shriek really work better than Scryer's Smite. So for the average person, I would say Scryer's Smite is definitely the way to go, especially because you can stack Soul Blaze while doing that. But there does come a point where if you really want to get good at Darktide, you need to stop crutching on CC tools like Smite and learn how to just aggressively flame everything to death. Because the difference in a run where someone is smiting everything and someone is flaming everything is a Rotten Armor, Nurgles. Let's put it this way. I was streaming Havoc 40 where we were playing with friends of mine and like my own fan base. And we had a very talented Psyker player with us. We were clearing the literal, like, for, at least from everyone that I talked to, so I'm sure someone's going to disagree with this, but the hardest possible Havoc 40. Silo Cluster with Rotten Armor and Nurgle's Garden. We were clearing it in like 32 minutes. Faster than some people clear Auric Maelstorms. Mr. E playing significantly easier maps with his viewers, and he was doing Scryers and Smite. By the way, this is literally not a diss. I'm just showing you the difference in these, like, the actual, like, why this matters. When Mr. E and his fans were playing his Havoc runs, and they were playing this slower, more control-y style, it took them over an hour to do an easier mission with the same, not, I don't want to say his, but, you know, just with the Smite setup. You know what I'm trying to say, right? I am not good at wording my ways, at wording things, okay? So please cut me a little charity here. The point I'm trying to make is when he was doing the thing with Smite, it took him like an hour and 15 minutes. When we were doing the thing with Venting Shriek, it took 30 minutes and in a harder environment. Okay, that's the point I'm trying to make. It's safer and easier and more people will win, you know, with Mr. E and what he's doing, but like the highest end is doing this other thing, okay? I'm sorry, I don't know how to word things in a way that doesn't make me sound like a dickhead, all right? Anyway, Warp Siphon hasn't changed. Actually, no, it's gotten stronger because you need CD more than ever before. CD is stronger, and this is, like, unequivocally the best keystone for that top end. Yoink. I have to show this now. Basically, so, right, in conclusion with that playstyle, Smite has gotten hella mega ultra giga buffed here. Hey, Fat Shark, stop buffing Smite. Every goddamn patch, I'm not joking, ever since its introduction, literally, you can check the patch notes if you don't believe me. Ever since the introduction of Smite, it has gotten stronger and stronger with every single patch. First, they gave it 100% damage. Then they upped it to 125%. Then they upped it to 200%. Then they gave Psyker 20% rending, which only helps like fast-ticking, light damage things like Smite. Then they kept giving him more warp damage. They have done nothing but buff the Smite / Soul Blaze playstyle since its introduction. The Soul Blaze playstyle was already the definitive best playstyle, and that has received buffs because every single thing they do to try and buff Smite ends up buffing these playstyles. Really, the biggest reason why I'm putting stuff like Smite, Scryers, and this node into the new meta tier is just because now that Scryers quells your heat and lets you cast while at overcap, you literally never have to stop smiting. And Smite now actually ticks for like 60, 70 damage, which means everything that is an armored packs just outright dies to Smite. So, like, if you have a Soul Blaze Psyker and a Smite Psyker and, like, a Veteran and, like, an Arbites, you don't even really need an... Honestly, like, 2 Veterans and, like, 2 Psykers can absolutely just dog walk the hardest Havoc 40s. Yeah, it's going to take you, like, an hour and a half, but you're probably not going to have anyone die. Unless they get, like, sniped or something. Just note, there is a lot of people that really do not want to deal with that playstyle. Because it absolutely just warps the entire game around it. And Disrupt Destiny has not changed. If you were using this before for, say, a Void... Say you were doubling up on Psykers, and you were doing a Void Strike Infinite Cleave, like to shoot through 17 bajillion Crushers or whatever setup, you're still doing that. Ogrenheimer is like the best way to play Ogryn from what every player I've asked has told me. And this is pretty critical to that build. So Rock has no one's rock canceling anymore, so rock is now pretty damn irrelevant, and nobody was really arguing the nuke in the first place. Charge has lost meta usage because you're welcome, by the way. This got the every single buff that I said it should have gotten, which has made it like the de facto best option. Ogryn taunting things. So really, here's the thing, right? Ogryn and Arbites are basically the same fucking class. The best way to play Ogryn, stand ahead of your team, taunt so that your team can just freely deal with stuff while you're doing a shit ton of damage. That's literally just Arbites with a shock mine, my brother in Christ. And this shit is irrelevant as fucked and has been nuked from orbit. The fact this no longer over... Dude, this could overcap stacks, and I don't even think it would be better than the current, like, Ogrenheimer setup. I still think spamming explosives and shit would, like, taunt and explosives, so the Ogryn has a way to control and deal huge AoE damage spread out across the Iron Pack. Like, I still think that would be by far and away the best way to play him. Even if you brought this back. I don't even know. No, I do know why this was nerfed. It's because there's like 3 Ogryn playtesters and all they fucking do is play with each other. They refuse to talk to the other playtesters. They literally refuse to talk in any community that isn't like curated Reddit threads or Discord threads, where all 3 of them are moderators, by the way. And they literally just play with each other. They only bounce ideas off each other. So they look at the scoreboard at the end of the game and they're like, ah, yes, look, the one guy taking this did like 700, did like 300k boss damage, and none of us did anything. Please nerf, it's too strong. Meanwhile, the Zealot is just deleting the boss in 1 second. Okay, anyway. So I do know why it was nerfed. I just, because it was a stupid nerf, I'm going to elect to make fun of it. So Ogryn auras, this gained a little bit of meta use because it isn't coherency toughness regen, it's just all your toughness regeneration. This lost meta use because, like, there's just way less gunners. And this is now just melee damage instead of heavy, so you're pretty much always just taking this. Lucky Bullet has gained meta usage. This has, as far as everyone has told me, become completely fucking irrelevant after the Ogryn buffs. If you're an Ogryn that still needs this damage reduction to be super tanky, you probably shouldn't be playing Havoc at all. And Heavy Hitter really hasn't changed. The Arbites stuff that buffed the dog, because the dog has gotten just nuked across the board, all of the dog stuff is just worse. This is a mostly accurate breakdown of how everything has changed over the last year or so. And this is just kind of where we're at. All right, I hope you enjoy this.